This is one of our better glitches. I'm kind of thinking
It's
this is a great jump off point to be successful in so many different levels.
It's no big deal. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's gonna be fine. It's fine. Or I was just like, well, I don't need to deal with that. Like I just avoided it. And what that did was create more conflict. Or I wasn't looking at reality, like this isn't happening, or this isn't really that bad. When we do that, when we avoid conflict, what we create and what we manufacture is fake peace. Nobody wants fake peace.
blown my mind all day here.
Welcome to Biz Glitch 165. It's June 13th, 2024. This is a year-long project of, we call them glitches, but they're mistakes, they're errors that you have made. You know you've made them. Look in the mirror, admit it, own it. Come on,
And we've made
own
them,
it.
which is why this project exists.
But today's video is about you owning an important element that affects literally every aspect of your business, whether it is conversations with your business partners or communications with your employees / team members,
Associates.
staff, associates, colleagues, vendors,
Everybody.
customers, prospective customers,
Everybody.
networking, everybody.
Oh my gosh.
Communication, strategic communication.
But what does that mean exactly? Which
I don't
is,
know. I just set
know.
it up. It teed it up for you to take
I was
the shot.
waiting. It was like this long thing you're talking about. But
I don't get
really,
a lot in these videos, and when I get it, I'm going to be strategic about communicating it, okay?
This is another one of my favorite topics, and it is about business owners who avoid conflict, who try to avoid conflict. Because can you really avoid conflict? Really what we're doing is avoiding confrontation of an adverse situation. I had a delightful conversation with a woman named Jen Whitmer who specializes in helping teams better communicate because of the confrontational nature, where she says confrontation is kind.
There's so many components of why we want to avoid confrontation. Some people are like, well, I'm not the one avoiding confrontation. I'm happy to do that. That is a minority of people. So the majority of us avoid confrontation, and it can come from a variety of motivations. And some of it is, why can't we all just be happy?
Yeah.
I just want everybody to like me. I've been taught that confronting people is rude, and I don't want to be rude. I've been taught if I confront somebody, I might be wrong, and I don't want to be wrong. There's all kinds of different reasons why we might not want to. It feels like a failure. If like, why didn't it work the first time? And some people are just deeply afraid, like fear of conflict or disconnection is their core root fear. So all of those reasons are why we might avoid what I like to call a kind confrontation. So the word confront actually means together to your face. So if we think about, oh, I'm just coming face to face with somebody and we're doing this together, that can shift your mindset about what a confrontation is.
Her specialty is just that, about having more kind confrontations instead of conflict and creating difficult conversations out of conflict. It may not be perfect, whoever is involved and the thing that's happening, but you can bring the human element to it with a level of kindness. So
From your description, it sounds like she's bringing a level, she begins that process with a level of acceptance.
Yeah.
Acceptance that confrontation is a real thing,
Yes.
and avoiding it is, you have to accept that it will happen, and you
Right.
can't avoid it. But how you manage your entry into confrontation, am I right? Does it? Because that kind of sounds like what the setup is.
Well, I'm glad that you asked, because we are going to be inserting clips from the interview.
When I'm working with a team or when I'm doing a keynote around leadership and self-awareness, I always like to, show the research. Because it's not just, Jen Whitmer's personal experience, but several organizational health researchers and psychologists all come back to self-awareness is that key piece. So self-awareness is the basic underlying number one skill that you need. And the research continues to show that self-aware leaders are the ones who run more engaged teams. Their teams are more productive. Self-aware employees and team members are the ones who get more raises and promotions. Self-aware leaders run more profitable companies. So these are all the outcomes that we want, right? And so that's why I start with that self-awareness piece and understanding who am I and what's motivating me. Then I start to understand how I can interact with other people.
Now, again, how many times have we said, unless you're a sociopath? But for the most part, if there is an error or a mistake, it was probably most of the time an accident. So we don't have to make this a full-on situation where you're not accepting that it was an accident. It was a mistake that was an accident. And instead, bring a level of kindness to the situation and not a level of fury to the person that you're having to confront.
So the word confront actually means together to your face. So if we think about, oh, I'm just coming face to face with somebody and we're doing this together, that can shift your mindset about what a confrontation is. And then when you put the modifier, you'd add an adjective of kind. I want to kindly come together with you to face something. That changes our perspective on how we're looking at confrontation.
Acceptance of a certain element of that, which reminds you to take the kind path as opposed to the obtuse path. I think the obtuse path is that your failure to recognize that people have different perspectives, they come from different backgrounds, they have different viewpoints, even within the same organization, within the same team, or customers have different viewpoints of your product or service.
Yeah.
And may not understand it, may need further education about it.
What about some of the tools that people could rely on without it feeling overwhelmed, like, oh, I got to learn something new?
So I'm going to give some really big ideas. They have very practical applications, but these are going to work in all places. So there's three things. The first one is knowing what a conflict is. And so when you define conflict as a fight, you're going to think of it like a war. So I want you to reframe that to conflict is the struggle in the middle, the struggle between limited resources and differing goals. So we've got limited resources, and they're usually time, money, people, and space. Those are somehow those categories get involved. And then we've got differing goals. Those are your motivations. That is what you want out of something. And so if you can start to reframe the struggle of the limited resources and the differing goals, that's a conflict. It will take you out of this person hates me or I'm a terrible person. It takes you out of some of those stories that create deep, deep reactions in your body.
Emotions.
Yes.
It removes the got it.
It
Okay.
doesn't totally remove the emotions, but it removes that idea of like, I'm the problem or you're the problem. It removes that aspect of it. So that's just a definition. The second thing is a posture. So I always want people to think of conflict. Once you've done this, okay, it's the struggle between limited resources and differing goals. That means we have a problem to solve. I'm not the problem. You're not the problem. So we're on the team. So it's you and me together. We're going to hook arms over here, and the problem is out there. So we're together, and we're together facing the problem out there. That's the posture, because conflict resolution is first a posture, then it's skills. So first the definition, then the posture. And the third thing is good questions. Great problem solving is finding out what the problem really is, which involves great questions and listening. And so I always like to ask questions in three categories. The first one is, how do you feel? Because the emotions are still a part of it. If somebody feels disrespected, that is a different problem than if they are angry. If somebody feels lonely, that is a different problem than if they're feeling grief. So find out what the emotions are. So how do you feel about this? And even at work, we've got to deal with emotions. And then the second set of questions are, what do you think about this? What's your data? Where did you come to that conclusion? How did you get to there? Who told you that? What are you thinking about this? And that kind of logic brain gets involved. And then the last set of questions is, what do you want to do about this? What solutions do you think could work? What action steps do you think we could take? What action steps do you want to take? If you got to pick a solution, what would you do? When you're starting to get there, then you're using what are all three levels of our intelligence, and they're coming together in this really lovely Venn diagram where in the middle is wisdom. And so when you can ask questions in these big categories, you start to discover the roots of the problem, what all the data points are, and all the different possible solutions. Because remember, we're just solving a problem. And that's how we get there in healthy conflict resolution.
I think it's also it's a dense concept because of the feelings that we have and the emotions that can be triggered from having to confront a not perfect situation. And in fact, a difficult person or a difficult situation.
Yeah.
So
You definitely take some time to work through understanding and making this concept of this glitch work for you in your business.
Yeah. It's a practice. It's an exercise in patience.
Definitely.
And kindness. So we hope you'll enjoy.
Take a moment to check in with your body. Where are you feeling the intensity? And even better, if you can label that emotion, because sometimes it just feels like passion or intensity and it's happening in your belly. It might be happening in your jaw. Is your heart racing? When you start to label that intensity and like find it in your body, label it as a specific emotion, and then rate it. Like, how intensely am I feeling this? Is this a 10 or is it this is like a 6? That immediately actually lowers the intensity, just that activity. So that's the first thing to do. And it doesn't take long to do that. It sounds like it probably took me longer to explain it than it does for you to do it. It's really about 20 or 30 seconds. That can start to lower the intensity, and that will immediately change your voice without you even thinking about how do I change my voice, because you've started to fix what's happening in your body. The second thing is to really breathe, because often when you're feeling intense, you have activated lizard brain and deactivated your executive functioning that's happening up here. So lizard brain is really literally like your brain stem, which is fantastic at keeping us alive, not awesome at communication. And then the third thing is when you're speaking, if you start to notice the other person's body language is shrinking back or kind of coming at you, whatever, like there's an intense, it isn't a neutral reaction. You can self-disclose like, hey, sometimes I sound harsher than I mean to come across. So if this is sounding harsh, will you let me know? Because that's not my intention. That self-disclosure of recognizing sometimes it's being perceived differently than my intention, but I can't know that unless you tell me.